All right, good day, good evening, good whatever time of day it is you're watching. My name is Josh Rivedal with Cubicle Lift, a big old conversation on workplace mental health. Mental health is wealth, and this is episode number 7. So excited to have these 3 guests and my illustrious co-host, Efrem Epstein. My name is Josh Rivedal. I'm with the I'm Possible Project, an organization that entertains and stutters, but most of all entertains and engages on mental health and suicide prevention through a lot of different things and a lot of different platforms. I don't want to take up any more time. I want to get to the conversation. First, I want to go to Efrem Epstein, and then he'll go to Heather, then to Ashley, then to Camilla. So Efrem, please tell us who you are, what you do. Boom.
So yeah, my name is Efrem F. Epstein. If you've been watching some of our earlier episodes, you know that Josh and I have known each other for a while. We just celebrated our 9th friend-versary, ally-versary, and we started doing this over the summer. And we said, if this goes well, then we'll keep doing it. If it doesn't go well, then we'll just put it in the vault and no one needs to know about it. And surprise of all surprises, it's turned out pretty well. And we're trying to build on each episode, and very excited about this episode. Heather, who I've known virtually for years and been admiring her work. We're talking about how there's something in the water of Missouri, because per capita there's just so much great mental health advocacy coming out of there. And Ashley, who I met serendipitously on LinkedIn, and she's become something of a LinkedIn influencer over the past few months. I put a LinkedIn post and I get 5 likes, 5 reactions. I'm happy. She's getting 10,000, 20,000 reactions. So what she's writing is obviously resonating with a lot of people, and honored that she's joining us. And Camilla, thank you for taking care of Josh. Thank you for hosting and doing the great work that you're doing out there in Arizona. And the other thing, it's kind of cool. I want to say we have all time zones represented, but that wouldn't be true. We'd need at least 24 people for that. I want to say every U.S. time zone represented, but that's not really true either, because we have more than 4 time zones in the U.S., if you count Alaska and Hawaii. But we have what we think of the 4 time zones represented on this call. We have the Eastern time zone where I am. We have Central. We have Mountain, and we have Pacific all repped. So it's going to be a very, very fun conversation for that. And let's kick it off from Eastern time zone to Central time zone. Heather, talk to us from Central time zone.
Hey, y'all. My name is Heather. I am an LPC. So I work at a community mental health agency, and I primarily work with individuals who have a co-occurring disorder. So they have a severe substance use disorder and a mental health disorder. I also work with the treatment court. And so I help individuals who may have gotten into a little bit of trouble. I help them go through treatment instead of prison. And so I get to do that aspect of this. I am a author in one of Josh's books, and the second one, I believe, in which I talk about my lived experience with an eating disorder. And I am a TED Talk presenter. I presented on, a TEDx talk presenter. I presented on the power of connection and how I believe that connection and really seeing each other and being there for each other can literally save lives.
Awesome. That's amazing, Heather. I'm going to flip the script a little bit. I'm going to go to Camilla next, so we can kind of go in order across the country, and then we'll kick it to Ashley. Just want to say Heather is a dear friend of mine. I've known her since 2017, and she's become like family in the Midwest for me. And her boys call me uncle. I'm dear friends with her husband, and so I just have the honor of having Heather on the show. And then Camilla, I had the honor of having on the show. Camilla's producing a show that I'm in right now, Every Christmas Story Ever Told, and it's a comedy. But Camilla is really, like, I don't want to speak for you too much, Camilla, but that fact that you are so social justice oriented in many of the projects that you pick. And like one of the first thing that we did together, we've been friends for about 8 years now, and just so much respect that you said, let's take theater, let's take community, let's take the arts, and let's take suicide prevention and mental health and put them together. And we did the I Am Worthy project in 2014. But the fact that like we've maintained this friendship, and then I see you continuing to do good work. So let me kick it to you and not say too much more about you, but ladies and gentlemen, Camilla Ross, please tell us about yourself, please.
I'm Camilla Ross. I operate the Emerson Theatre Collaborative on two coasts, Mystic, Connecticut and Sedona, Arizona. And then I also operate another business called Sedona Arts Academy. So that academy allows us to have space in which to perform and do our work. We have always been an institution that, or a theater company institutionalized, creating work that is social justice oriented. There's so many things that the world has put upon everyone's plate that are social issues and challenges for people in general. And so we try to tackle those things that are really, really important to individuals, groups, or whoever and however they come to our attention. And so for me, it's about educating people, and you don't have to beat them over the head. You can gently give them a topic, and you can do it through theater. And theater is very, very healing for the world at large. And so for me, it's really about the conversations that we have when we are in the theater, and what type of mental health initiatives that come out of creating theater, which are many. And so in addition to that theater realm, I also teach finance and accounting, the other half of my brain, so I can connect the dots when necessary. There's so many things that we can do with what we have. And so I choose to use theater as a way of healing the masses of people. Like I said, you can be very gentle and give them what they need, and you don't have to beat them over the head. You can love them through theater, and that's what we do best.
Thank you, Camilla. Thank you so much for being here. Ashley Newton is a new friend and a new colleague, I'd say, and through Efrem, we have met Ashley. So Ashley, please tell us who you are, what you do, anything you want to share. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. My name is Ashley, born and raised in Seattle, Washington. I have spent the majority of my career as an event planner, planning and producing corporate and lifestyle events. In August of this year, due to COVID, I found myself without a job for the first time in my life. I've been working since I was 16. I'm now 33. And my career was really my identity, and I really had no idea what it was going to be like job searching in 2020. And after an especially difficult day of job searching, I went on LinkedIn and I just very quickly kind of wrote down my raw emotions and experiences with job searching in 2020. And I thought maybe 12 people would see it. I was not an avid LinkedIn user by any means. And by the end of that day, 10,000 people had viewed it. I had 1,000 comments, and I have almost 2 million views on that post now. And I've just continued to write about my journey. And a lot of that has to do with just mental health and what it's like to be unemployed in 2020. And my posts have really seemed to kind of struck a chord with people and really resonate with people. And, with the future of events really kind of unclear, I've decided to pursue a career in human resources. I am going back to school to pursue that. And I really want my main focus in HR, and something that I really feel passionate about, is mental health in the workplace. As somebody who suffers from anxiety and depression, it's a cause that's really close to my heart. And I think because I've experienced that firsthand, that I can really help other people through that. And so Efrem reached out to me on LinkedIn and told me about, what this podcast was about. And I couldn't say no. I think what you're doing is really valuable right now.
Thank you, Ashley. That's
Thank you.
I think it's incredible. We have really 5 helpers on this call, and we're doing it in different ways, and we're coming together for this big conversation around workplace mental health, right? So it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you. Let's just kick off some questions, and I think usually how it goes is we sort of let the guests figure out who's going to answer, and everyone gets to just chime in, and then F and I will find maybe a way to distill or chime in, or and honestly, like, we are kind of focusing this a bit more towards women and things, you know, othering and such. So I might be a bit more silent than usual. Like, I know that I take up space at times, and I need to listen more. So this might be one of those moments. We'll find out. Kicking off questions, right? So what is the state of women's mental health in the workplace? Like, are there things that women have to deal with more than men? Or is there anything that's uniquely affecting women and not affecting men? It's a sort of a broad loaded question maybe, but anyone chime in. Personal experience or things that you're seeing. What's going on out there?
I'll start.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think that as women, we want to do it all, and we want to be the best at everything. We want to be the best employee. We want to be the best mom, the best sister, the best friend, the best daughter. And I don't necessarily know if men have that same amount of pressure. I think sometimes men, they're okay with just being good at one or two things, whereas women feel the need to be good at everything, and we want to please everybody. And I think with that, we lose a portion of ourselves. We forget that we need to take care of ourselves. And if we don't take care of ourselves, how can we be the best version to everyone around us? So I think that there's just a lot of pressure that women face that I'm not sure if men also face.
I think some of that, for women, I personally, I'm not interested in being everything to everyone. I realize the older I get, the less I need to do that. I need to look at things that sit in my main realm while I'm working. And so the jobs in which I'm doing, for me, it's always been about the person that I'm working with and how they're feeling. And so I will always ask them, hey, how you feeling today? Is there something that, is troubling you? Asking those questions. Women tend to ask those questions a little more, we're nurturers. And the efforts in which we put into the work that we do is monumental. And so some of the stuff that we think we need to do, we actually don't need to do. And we have yet to realize that as women, that we don't have to do everything. But what we are doing should be enough. And those are the things that the older I get, the more I'm learning that what I'm doing is enough. And so I don't have that pressure as an older woman. I think my younger generation of women really tend to stick in that realm and feel like they have to do it all at this point in their life, And as you get older, I think that's going to change. And it'll change on how you see and how you view what's important to you in your life. So.
Yeah. No, I am right there with you, Miss Camilla. Like, I was thinking when you and Ashley were speaking that, like, I think that it's taken me a while as a woman and a woman in the workplace and a woman who wears a lot of hats, mama, wife, counselor, like all these different, living in recovery, like all these different things. It took me a while to balance it. There for a while, like I was teaching every weekend, and I was doing suicide prevention work every weekend, or 2 weekends a month, because like I believe in it and I'm passionate about it, and like we need to educate about mental health, and we need to do these things and all this stuff. And so like I believe that wholeheartedly. And then one day I was like, I have completely gotten out of balance here, because I'm teaching, mental health first aid, and I'm doing all these different things, and I'm talking to other parents about how to recognize signs and symptoms and all these different things with their children or their loved ones. And I'm like, I'm not home very often to do that. And like, I know for me, it was really difficult, like to make that, to try to find that balance a little bit more, and realize like that it's okay. That I can still do suicide prevention work at my house with my babies, like I'm still doing the work. I'm still advocating, I'm still doing those things. And there's no rule that I have to do it so often that I'm out of balance. Because that's kind of what I'm hearing Miss Camilla you say, and Ashley you say, like finding that balance and us wanting to do everything. And you're right, like as I've gotten older and hopefully a little bit more wiser, I've realized that there's no possible way for me to wear every hat perfectly, and that is perfectly fine.
It is fine for us as women. We don't need to wear every single hat. When I was going through breast cancer, I made a conscious decision to not tell anyone but certain people. I had a couple of people that I told, and I needed to put my head down and just get through that without having all of the other outside influences to change my direction. And so for me, that was learning a balance. And it's something that I truly needed in my life, was to have that balance. And then I turned vegan. And so that was another thing for me to just, find that balance for myself, taking care of me, because if you don't take care of you, you're not going to have that energy to take care of anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so it's a learning process for women, because we've been told that we have to do certain things. And the older I get, I find that that's not the case. A lot of men don't do that. They look at what their scope is, and they're only going to do what they need to do. And so it takes me back to my childhood, where my dad raised me and said, hey, this is how a man thinks. This is how a woman thinks. And my dad was a psychiatric nurse. And so I learned to think on both realms. So taking care of yourself first is important.
Yes, I think it's so interesting that you just said that, because that was something like that whole mommy guilt thing, that they talk about. Like, that's a real thing. Like, whenever I was going through grad school, like, I felt guilty all the dang time. Like, I felt guilty because I was in class. I felt guilty if I was at home. I felt guilty, excuse me, if I was like watching Elf with my kids because it was around the holidays. Like, I just felt guilt all across the board. And then, like, as if that wasn't enough, then I would have some people go, oh, is Chad watching the boys while you're in class? What? No, he's not watching our children. He's parenting our children while I am following a goal of mine that also, FYI, is going to benefit our family. So calm that down for a second. Like, I feel like there's some of that. And I feel like, I try to be very cognizant of the fact that, like, whenever I'm sharing I don't want to say issues, my challenges sometimes as a woman, that I don't share them in such a way that, like, I'm throwing shade at the men, because I know that they also have, like, so many different challenges that we don't have, right? And so that irritates the fire out of him too. He's like, no, I'm not babysitting my kids. Like, I'm spending time with my children. Like, no one asked him that. No one asked, like, whenever he goes to medic school, like, hey, is Heather watching your kids for you? No, like, they just assume.
Yeah, it's those unsaid things or said things that are, in the workplace that affect women negatively. They think because we're working that we're not being good parents, or we're not, being good wives, or what have you. That's not the case. So we've been put upon all these conditions that we must meet. And the truth is, we don't have to meet any of them, honestly.
Isn't that like the most beautiful feeling? Like, when you wake up one day, and I don't know how the hell it happens. Like, it's just like one day you're like, oh, me holding everybody's expectations and judgments of me is getting kind of heavy. I think I'm just going to, like, slough this off. It's so great, isn't it? Like, it's empowering. Like,
that
fantastic.
That affects our mental health as women and what we're told we're supposed to do. But when we realize that we don't have to do that, it changes how our thought process is, not only about ourselves, but about other women in which we come in contact with.
Yes.
So it's real important, women supporting women through these things that are put upon us. And so when we look at them as a whole scope, we say, okay, wait a minute. This is not done for a man. This is not said to a man. Why is it that we as women put those things upon other women? Mm-hmm. So have y'all it's that road.
Right. Have y'all ever seen Friends?
Yes.
Okay. So there's this episode, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this or not, but it's when Chandler does something to Joey and Joey gets like mad. So then he goes and like wears all his clothes. Do you guys
Yeah.
remember that episode? Like he's
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
he was like, I'm wearing everything you own, right? And so I
Could
think
I be wearing more clothes? He does the Chandler
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah.
from lunges, going commando. Yeah, like love that scene. And I think sometimes, not only as women, I think as people in general, we tend to Joey ourselves sometimes. Like we like put like level after level after level after level of things, you know, whether it's be the perfect mom, be the perfect employee, be the perfect wifey, like be a certain size, look this certain way, like what, like we just keep wearing those things, and then it's so heavy, and it just, you know, it weighs on us. And so being able to peel some of those things back, just like what you're talking about, Miss Camilla, like realizing like, wow, I ain't got to do this, and like literally taking that off is so empowering. Like I don't need to Joey right now.
If I don't want to wear makeup one day, I don't. And I don't
Don't
care.
tell me I look tired.
Are you tired? Are you this? No, I just choose not to wear makeup that day. You
Right.
know?
I
Right.
think as a millennial female, my generation is sort of built on terms like girl boss and boss babe and all these things that we sort of wear, like being busy and being a hustler as this like badge of honor. And I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. I think it's okay to say, when someone asks you how you are, it's like there's something, I always feel like there's something wrong if you're not saying, oh my gosh, it's so busy, I'm so crazy, just things are nuts. I want it to be okay to say, I'm okay, I'm just, things are kind of slow right now, and that's just not the world that we live in. And I would love to sort of see a shift in that, of being able to slow down. And I think COVID is actually, the silver lining in that is that we've all really been forced to take a step back. And so many of us have lost our jobs, and those were our identities. And we're having to figure out new identities for ourselves.
You have to recreate the wheel, Ashley, sometimes,
Yeah.
when things happen. Like I said, the older you get to make choices, and those choices that you make really affect how your life turns out. You get to make those choices. So even when you're working in corporate America, you can still make that choice to whether or not you want to work there and whether or not you want to deal with that. When I chose to leave corporate America, I made a conscious decision to not even look back, because I got tired of having to deal with those issues that were laid upon me as a female, working in that environment.
Yeah.
And it was very unhealthy for me, not only mentally, but physically.
Yeah.
I mean, I physically took my body to a point where it needed to truly regenerate. Breast cancer, I mean, it didn't, I wasn't frightened by it, but it was a wake-up call for me. A true wake-up call. You have choices, and you either continue down that road of doing everything and wearing yourself out both physically and mentally, or you take a step back with COVID, as it has done, and allowed you to breathe and figure out where in your life do you need to make change. And I think women as a whole, with the whole COVID thing, has really stepped up and realized what we're capable of doing and what we are not capable of doing, and those choices that we're choosing. Mm-hmm. So I think women are so wise in that respect, to make those choices, because now's the time to do it. And while you're making those choices, you're also lifting up the men that need to be lifted. So we're doing that naturally. And I think it's important as women that we continue to do that for our own mental health.
Absolutely.
So, Camilla, what you just said about you're lifting up the men, I just wanted to first off acknowledge that, agree with that, and also say really thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. Really thank you, anybody who's watching here, for all you're doing to shake it up. I recognize that as a white, straight, cis male, I check all the privilege boxes. I'm old enough to have remember the workplace when just about all my coworkers and really just about all my superiors were white straight cis males, or at least people that externally projected as white straight cis males. And it was not always fun. And I had to often deal with expectations, because often when you put a bunch of white straight cis males in charge, they can make up some weird rules, such as like people that one's dating life is their business. And if it's not, that one should have to answer to all that every Monday morning. And that things like how well you are in sports, how well you're doing on the company softball team or volleyball team is really relevant to your job performance. It's silly. It was silly. It was ludicrous, but that was what often happened when you had a bunch of people, a bunch of white straight cis males making the rules. And so I thank all of you for sharing everything you have so far, and really thank you for all the work you're doing, because as Camilla said, you're helping males too. You're helping a lot of men in the workplace as well, just by doing that, being assertive and standing up for what's right.
I just want to chime in for a second too, because I've heard what I kind of heard through that as well. Just my own take and my own experience is just, first, there's like three very diverse experiences from three, diverse people. And so, I think it's interesting. Yeah, we're talking about women in the workplace, yet it's still a very diverse, topic. Like, to me, it's like saying, the Hispanic vote. Like, that's a very diverse thing to say. Or the Black vote, or it's a diverse thing, and we can't paint. But I do hear some through lines as well. And I think one thing that I'm hearing, and that I've actually had a bit of a conversation with you this morning, Camilla, about, is the pressure. Like, I don't understand it from a woman's point of view, but I understand it from a different point of view, the pressure to do everything, to be everything to everybody. And I'm sort of shedding my layers, my Joey layers as well. And I think, we as men could really learn something and say, hey, like, because of this erroneous and archaic societal construct of like women have to, and if you could see my air quotes, have to be everything, the mom to, well, how about men? Let's step up and learn how to be more of a primary caregiver to the family, or to this or to that. Like, let's not put it all on, and let's, how do we share in everything in society, including in the workplace. And so, and like you said, Heather, like not being like, Chad, are you babies? No, I'm parenting. Like, and the things you've been through, Camilla, and Ashley as well. So I'm hearing and learning balance, and I'm hoping that through this conversation, men hear this and say, wow, three amazing, strong women, three amazing experiences, not always easy, but also like, hey, maybe we need to start balancing, so, in a different way, so that we're not, putting all this pressure and not talking about our stuff and the pressures that men come, that men come to the table with. So I'm hearing balance, and sort of putting away sort of those societal constructs that we've sort of lived under for far too long.
And I flip under those too, Josh, but there's things that, men can learn that women are already doing and have been doing, for centuries, if you will. Because men, they're told they have to be non-emotional, which I think is ridiculous, because we're all emotional beings. And when they're non-emotional, there's the extra added pressure that are put upon women because they are unemotional, and not having those conversations that women need to have. Because when women have those conversations with men, there are things that we will do and say that will help men, not only mentally, but physically, in their overall health. So why not come to the table with an open mind and be able to learn and let go of some of that? I want to use maleness, for lack of a better word. I could say chauvinistic, but not all men are chauvinistic, okay? There are things that we can do and have those conversations, healthy conversations, because most men don't talk. And they don't talk about their feelings. And those are the things that, that really need to happen in the workplace. So whether it's your boss, who's a male boss, and not having those conversations, he should be able to have those conversations with all of his employees or her employees to make it a level playing field for everyone. so that there's not the overdue stress of mental health issues in the workplace. Lifting up men who have, been displaced, or women who have been displaced, we all have that responsibility, okay? And this is the era, I think, in which we are changing how we view the world, how we view our lives, how we view the people that are in our lives, and what that does to us as human beings.
I agree with you. I feel like the way that I've always tried to look at things and look at perspectives is that I understand that my experience as a woman in the workplace is valid, and that the struggles and the challenges that I've experienced are valid and are true. And I also understand that I will not fully understand what my husband's challenges in the workplace are, especially like he's a first responder, right? Like he's a fireman. So, looking at I'm a big believer in like change from the like understanding each person's perspectives and finding the things like the commonality between each person's perspective and growing from that. I'm a huge believer in those things. And so like, I know, like I have, like Josh mentioned earlier, I have 3 boys. And so I have tried like to raise them in a way that there's not these gender constructs, like you don't cry, toughen up. Like I've tried not to do that. And I've tried to show them what that emotional vulnerability is also strength, and that sometimes it's not within that same, like maleness, like what you said, like it's not necessarily seen as strength, but it is.
Yeah.
I think that one of the cool things that I'm seeing now is like, I feel like there's kind of a shift in that. Like I'm seeing kind of a shift in like men's mental wellness and recognizing these things. And so like, I'm a big believer in, we don't have, like at home, we don't have those gender constructs, right? Like I'm not the only one that cooks supper. The boys can tell you Josh cooks it better than me. I think is ridiculous because all he did was heat up my leftovers, but that's all my about is how Josh is a better cook than mom is, but those things and like having those open conversations where we do start young, like because a lot of these constructs start little and we don't even realize it, right? Like I've been so guilty of being a terrible mother because I didn't realize some of the crap I was doing, that some of those constructs that I was doing, and vice versa. Some of my, male friends or some of my male coworkers and stuff, like not realizing like the words that I say or how it's said actually perpetuates those.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we do it. Women do a lot of things that we don't realize we're doing to men, if you will.
Right, and then we get mad when they come to us.
Yeah, exactly. So we also have to be mindful as women the things that come out of our mouths and how we treat our men, if you will, because they've been under these things as well. And so I think all of that's being unearthed right now in 2020, so we can take a good look at ourselves and honestly try to work on the things that we need to work on as people.
Isn't that like the most beautiful thing though? Like starting to see this change.
Yeah.
Like I'm so like excited about it. Like starting to see this little change where like it seems like little glimpses here and there. Like there's a big push about men's mental health, and it's okay to talk about things, and it's okay to do this. And like I was actually talking to a consumer today, and we were talking about like taking back the word emotional and like redefining it, because like traditionally that's been like an ugly word, like a shame on you word for women, right? Like you're being too emotional. And like no one says that, like, wow, you're being too emotional, like good job. It's like a dirty word, right? Like something's wrong with us. And so I said today, I was like, you know what? We're gonna take that back. We're gonna redefine it. And so that like being emotional is strength. Like sharing emotions is strength. Being vulnerable with other people is strength. Like sharing these things and being honest about, hey, like my wife is talking to me about she feels pressure to have everything like be perfect. Wow, like I feel some pressure too. Let's have a conversation about that. So we're like being emotional together instead of like it just being a shame on you thing.
I think it's great when men are emotional. That, I mean, for me, that makes my heart beat, you know, when men get emotional about certain things. I have men friends that cry. I love that because they need to do that to heal. I mean, Ashley, I mean, have you ever been in that space where, you know, you've met someone and whether they're male and they begin to cry?
Yeah, so I think men are actually seeking opportunities to be emotional and to know that it's okay to be vulnerable. I would say a majority of the messages in my LinkedIn inbox right now are from men, and they won't comment, but they'll message me and say, I thought I was the only one that felt this way. I cry all the time, but I do it alone. I don't want to show my kids or my wife, and you've showed me that maybe it's okay to do that. And so I think we need to stop looking at men as the enemy and more as allies. I think if we give them room to support, to help support us, they will. They're clearly wanting to do that.
Absolutely. My husband is fantastic at supporting the work in which I do. And Josh is a testament to that. Honestly, this man will do whatever I ask him to do. You know,
Yeah.
he will cook, he will clean, he will do whatever it is so that I can do the work in which I do. And even when I'm doing my work, he comes in and he jumps and he contributes to that work, giving each the room to expand and to grow. Men need to grow too. And we need to leave them that space so that they can grow.
Yeah.
We're just what they are. We just have a different, you know, hormone in the body, okay?
Yeah, a different biological makeup. But yeah, I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we all have feelings, and we're not robots. And I don't think that we should try to pretend that we are.
And I'd like to, I'll just chime in for a moment and just give Jack a quick shout out, Camilla's husband, because he's just such a helper and such a kind and generous person. And but we need to call that out. Like we need to, in general, like on the show, off the show, in each other's lives. I got to tell Jack to his face. We'll get there. But I think Jack is just an outstanding human and husband because I see him. He's got the emotional capability. He's got Chad too, Heather's husband. I know Chad very, very well. And both of these guys are helpers, are lovers, are seekers of knowledge, and are looking to better themselves. And they're doing so in a uniquely male way, but they're doing it in a way that I can relate to and that I can look up to and I can, bounce off of in certain ways. And I can say in my own life too, like I didn't grow up in a way where emotions were okay. I grew up in a very prayed away sort of, we don't talk about our stuff. And that affected me in a very negative way. Like I'm speaking as a male to males, but what I try to do, and this is just sort of, this might be atypical, but also to men who are watching who fall into a different category, like maybe just something I can help and uplift in a way is say, hey, with the men that are in my life, I try to frequently say, I love you, without qualifying it with like, I love you. I care about you. Why can't we do that, men? Like we have that opportunity, we have that opportunity to be intimate and to be, just to uplift one another in our way. And we come to the women, we come in a different way. Even with my small nephews, like I'm really like, we're going to snuggle, we're going to cuddle. Like, it's not just because you're not my niece doesn't mean we're not going to cuddle. And this little boy, I have one on the way, so I don't technically have my second nephew yet, but we cuddle, we hug. He's 2, so we can still like kiss on the mouth. So he'll like give me a hug and he'll just come in. It's this big little boy. And so, and just sort of normalizing, hey, I love you. Like Uncle Josh loves you. And it's just sort of being that nurturer that maybe, men aren't necessarily expecting. So it's happening. It's slowly happening, but men, it's possible. And I'm speaking as a male, Heather.
When you said that, like telling men that you love them, I have a friend of mine who is in the first responder field, and he has told different people, he was like, so you can go into a fire and you're going to have your person's back, but you can't tell them you love them. Like if that, like that's love. Like, like if that person goes in, you're going with them, and you are not coming out until like they're out, right? Like that you have their back 100%, but you can't say, I love you, man. Like you can't. And he was like, no, like you need to be open about how you feel about each other. Like, and I thought that was such a beautiful thing, because like it sounds different coming from men than me, right? Like people are going to know, oh, Heather's the mental health person, so like of course she's going to talk about emotions and blah 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 blah. But whenever it comes from a male, like what you were saying, Josh, like, and hearing that or seeing it, like talking about Camilla's husband, seeing it. And so like you're not just hearing about it, you're seeing it, and it's okay. And like you're seeing the actions of it. Like it's such a beautiful thing, because like then like it gives it more value. I think like it validates it more, I believe.
Mm.
And you have to look at it, from, I get it from women. How can you let your husband go for 2 weeks? Don't you feel like that's, a bit too much? And I'm like, no, he needs to have that quality time for himself so that he can grow as a person. I want my free time so I can grow. And mental health is all about that. Having your own space. It's okay to have your own space in a marriage, mm-hmm. and still have that marriage function the way it should. So we have a lot of work to do in so many areas, of life and living and relationships, and how we treat people, because how we treat people creates that mental health challenge. And when we recognize that and we're able to look at it for what it is, we can fix that, because it needs to be fixed. And so we need to take a good long look at that as women and as men.
Something I brought up, I think, on the last episode we taped, earlier on that day, I'd seen one of my colleagues participate in a panel. He said that there are really three things that every human wants. I think this goes for every human, however they identify. People want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be believed. And I think that however we identify, we may have different ways that those needs have been suppressed in the past. And that's why we need to be extra sensitive for people from certain marginalized backgrounds. But in the end, whatever marginalized background you came from, or if you check all the privilege boxes and you didn't come from any marginalized background, in the end, I really think that every human being has those three needs. That's what they're after: to be seen, to be heard, and to be believed.
100%.
Yeah, completely agree.
So question then, I'll jump to number 4. So what can cis males do to be better allies? Thoughts? Ideas?
I think like standing up for whenever you see like blatant sexism, or not even just blatant sexism, but like kind of low-key sexism, like my co-instructor and I, like you talked about Rick Straight, and he is amazing and a fantastic co-instructor, and I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of things with him. And he and I were getting ready for a training, and this guy comes in and knows both of us, and goes, "Oh, Rick, are you preparing for your training?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, is Heather going to be your assistant? Is she making coffee and copies?"
Mm-hmm.
And so then he goes, "You do realize that like she's co-facilitating this training? Oh, that's nice of you to let her help." And he said it again. It was like, "No, she's co-facilitating this." And so I think whenever we see things like that, because it happens. Like I have a friend of mine who's an attorney, and she was telling me about how they constantly are telling her like, "Oh, well, which attorney are you here for? Or whose assistant are you?" Right? So like, I think cis males can, like when you see things like that, like stand up and say something. And like, because it goes bad. Like if I say something about it, like, "Hey, that's kind of BS," like you realize that this is what I do, right? I can say that, and it's going to be heard differently if it comes from a cis male. Like, you know, if it comes from the person who's saying it and seeing it, like then it's not just me being emotional, right? Because then that kind of further perpetuates that patriarch, or excuse me. But being able to say that and stand up and say, no, actually, like that, you're wrong. You know, like that's a great way to be an ally.
Yeah, it is. Any of the isms, you know, for that matter.
Right.
There is a lot of them, and so when men stand up and say, "Yeah, we're not gonna accept that," you know, at least I'm not going to accept it, and so therefore you need to check yourself, because that's something that men listen to other men. Period. And then they start thinking about the things in which they're doing. So, and I've seen it where it's just been, you know, the exact opposite. Like, again, my husband is a great example. He used to not say anything when those things happen. And I would say, you know, this is really starting to bother me. You need to check yourself on how you look at this, because it's affecting me and how I'm feeling. And he saw it enough times where he just stepped in and said, you know what, you're right. I can't let this go on. And so again, that's his growth learning, you know, as a person. And so I think it's real important that we have a lot to teach them and they have a lot to teach us.
I think another thing to kind of recognize too is that women can do that to one another as well, right? Like I get so frustrated sometimes whenever I see like this mean girls kind of mentality where like they're ugly to other girls just because they want to be seen as powerful and, you know, part of that hierarchy in that club, and like to show how tough and everything they are. And then they're just ugly. They're ugly to, you know, and they're trying to prove that they're just as like cutthroat as some of the, you know, some of the men are. I'm like, that is defeating the whole purpose. Like I really am loving this new kind of, it's not new, but like I've seen a lot more of it lately, and maybe it's just like I'm more hyper aware of it lately, so that's why I've been seeing it. Like after you buy a yellow car, you see all the yellow cars, so maybe that's it. But I see a lot of like women supporting women, like strong women supporting strong women, and like lifting each other up rather than like that kind of old school way of thinking, like the mean girls thing, like seeing women and supporting one another and lifting each other up and recognizing those things. And I think that is such a powerful tool, because like I feel like it's not necessarily all fair to be like, well, if men treated us better, like we're responsible for some of this shit too. Like we have to own some of this. Like we're not necessarily good to one another. And like how the hell do we expect for other men and other people to treat us like when we're doing the exact same thing?
Yes.
Like that's wrong. I don't like that. I'm taking that. We're not doing that. No.
We have to be the example that we want men to be. And if women,
amen to that. Yeah, absolutely. We're stronger together, regardless of gender. We really are just stronger together.
Absolutely.
Right.
I just want to give you an opportunity to, because both Heather and Camilla gave direct responses. So do you have any ideas? I'm pointing to you as if you can see where I'm pointing. Actually, is there anything you want to further, you know, cis males, better allies, anything? Because I think the LinkedIn and what you've experienced has another shade to it, maybe. If not, that's okay. We'll move on.
Yeah, I think what Heather said earlier about that it really starts at home. I think it's never too early to start teaching your young kids to be allies to women. So, and you know, if you're 70 years old and you've never been an ally to women, like it's never too late. You can start being an ally today. I just think there's no age limit. So just really what we all want, you know, is to see and to be heard and to believe. And I think that's how men can be an ally to women. See us, hear us, believe us.
Right. When you said that, actually, it made me think of.
Hold on. Let me direct traffic to Camilla, then Heather. Go ahead.
I said, especially on the things that affect women, when, you know, especially on crimes It's a great example. Crimes against women. You know, there's so many. And when women say this stuff is happening, we find that sometimes men, oh, well, what did you do to? No, that's not the question that should be asked. It should be immediately, this happened. Let's look into it, okay, with honesty and integrity. And when that starts happening, that dynamic will start to change. I honestly believe that, because so many women are going through stuff, and men go through it too, okay? Men go through it too, and we're just not talking about that, and we need to be. So there's that dual platform here where we need to have those conversations about things that happen to women, crimes, as well as crimes that happen to men.
Heather.
Oh, I like how you're.
That's where you are on my screen. Up.
I know. Actually, whenever you were talking about that, and like Camilla, it like goes in with what you're talking about too. But I remember very distinctly, like my middle guy Levi. I was outside chopping wood because it was about to snow. And why are you laughing, Josh? Like, I can.
Story. Go ahead. I know the story. Go ahead.
Wood. Anyways, I was out chopping wood because it's about to snow, and my southern tail is not about to be cold, y'all. That is not. So I was chopping wood, and my middle son Levi like walks outside and was like, "Dang," and I go, "What?" And he goes, "A woman that can make biscuits and sling an axe. That's awesome." And I was like, whoa. Like, you do realize that we can do both, right? Like, it's not one or the other. It's not these things. Like, and that was just such a, it was such like a learning experience for me. I'm like, wow, like, that's fantastic that he's, kind of sucks that he like assumed like, you know, splitting wood was just a man's job, but like, he learned, you know, and like now, like it's part of that. And I think that,
and now when he sees that, he won't think it's weird. He'll think that's the norm, that women can do it all.
Right. And so like, I think that like putting people in these like little pigeonholes across the board, like whatever that pigeonhole is, whether it's, you know, women, men, like transgender, gay, bisexual, black, white, brown, like I think when we start putting people in those holes and we try to, like, one of the things that frustrates the fire out of me is when we try so hard to like understand each one of those things that we forget the commonality, that we're all people, and we all, you know, like we can understand the different challenges that each one of us go through, and those are real and those are valid. And at the end of the day, like, we're all people with different challenges and different valid challenges. And I think the more conversations we have like this, where we like, I see your challenge. Like, I've not had that challenge, but here's one I've had. And let's find the connection between those, right? Like, the connection between being emotional to emotional. Like, I can't say anything because I'm gonna be too emotional. Well, I can't say anything because I'm not supposed to be emotional, right? Like, finding that commonality, like, I think that that's how we change the world. Like, I really do. Like, I think that's how we change the world, is we understand and recognize those differences and like validate each person's experiences and differences, and also recognizing that our commonality is that we're people, and finding that connection.
Yeah.
Well said.
Brilliant. So what I want to do here, I think, if it's okay with you, F, is I kind of want to wind down. We covered a lot of ground. I mean, we could probably talk for another 30, 45 minutes, an hour, but
Women are talkers. That's why.
Yeah. So emotional too. God. Oh, no. All right.
So much knowledge.
Guess who's not being an ally right now? I want to kind of wind down though, and just ask each of you to maybe leave us with, you know, a sentence, a phrase, or just something that you'd like the audience to take away with. And then I'll kick it to F, and then I'll close it down. Whoever wants to start, jump in, chime in.
Hey, be kind, be gentle, be honest with yourself, but not just with yourself, with others.
Thank you, Camilla. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Recognizing each person's, like I said, recognizing each person's challenges, but also their strengths, you know, and seeing the person as a person, and not putting these, you know, labels or limits on people and trying to make them like fit into the expectations that we have. Like be able to see people as people and provide that space where it is safe for us to be vulnerable and to share those experiences, because we all have them, you know, so being able to connect and share them is huge.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate you as well. Ashley, please.
Words matter. I think that if we want people to continue to be authentic and vulnerable, we need to respond in a way that encourages that instead of, you know, tearing people down. So I always say, if you wouldn't feel comfortable saying that to your mom or your sister or your dad or your brother, you probably shouldn't say it. So really just coming down to words matter, and they really make a difference.
Well put. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate you. Efrem, illustrious Efrem.
So, thank you so much. So I would, what I would say is, I think it's good for everybody, but I specifically want to address this to any white straight cis males that may be watching. You should be very pro and be opening yourself up to be exposed to a lot of diverse voices for at least two reasons. First off, because it's the right thing to do. But secondly, because if you're not going to do it because it's the right thing to do it for your own selfish reasons, because the more diverse voices there are out there, the better life it's going to be for everybody, including yours.
Well put, Efrem. I'm just thinking about growth too when it comes to those diverse voices. Like I grow more when I hear other perspectives and other cultures and other anything that is not my own experience, and I grow and my world expands, and I'm like, wow, that's a possibility. Holy cow, you do that? That's what, wow, okay, cool. And my horizons are broadened. And I'm hearing vulnerability and authenticity, you know, and I think to do that, we need to show that as well. And men, we need to do that. Women, we need to do that. But that kind of, you know, that kind of behavior begets that kind of behavior, and it builds trust, it builds loyalty, it builds more efficiency and efficacy in the workplace and beyond. It engenders growth. And so the more that we're vulnerable and authentic, and part of that too is also not just the way that we speak, but the way that we listen. So we're listening with the intent to learn rather than the intent to respond. And then when we want to know more about someone's experience, if they're opening up and sharing, we're asking big questions instead of yes or no questions or leading questions that give you the result that you may or may not be looking for, right? So it's so our vulnerability and authenticity is about listening, and it's about you know, really trying to learn. So man, I'm so doggone grateful for all of you today. I also have editing privileges, so I will show you pictures of the things that I cooked at Heather's house that are bomb and that are not just
Word.
that we'll see. I got that nachos and fried chicken.
And this is our last episode of 2020, so we made it through the year. And yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully put this out before the end of 2020. You may be watching in 2021, but when we tape our next episode, we will hopefully be in the better year for the world of 2021.
Oh, kitty. All right. Let Heather know what that means. Ashley, we'll tell you later.
So excited.
Yeah. Let's get.
It's a joke that originated in Missouri.
It did.
Anyway, a massive thanks to our guests, Camilla, Ashley, Heather, and my illustrious co-host, Efrem. Appreciate you all. This has been Cubicle Lift, a big conversation on workplace mental health.
Thank you.
Episode number 7. We'll see you next time.
Episode number 5.
Thank you so much. Release.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.